You are listening to The Vocal Technologist. Spoken tech for your ears.
I am convinced that the velocity of change in the engineering world is governed by some kind of, perverse non-Newtonian physics.
That's one way to put it.
You close your laptop Friday afternoon, you feel like you're totally taught up, and then you open it Monday morning, and a major acquisition has dropped, a framework has stabilized, and there's a critical fire alarm level vulnerability just floating around. It's impossible to track it all.
It's a brutal race to keep up, and that feeling of being perpetually behind is exhausting. Why a targeted approach is so essential right now. You just can't listen to everything.
Right.
You have to find the signals that point to where the industry is actually putting its serious resources and focus.
That is exactly what we're trying to do here. We took that incredible stack of material you shared, and we're just distilling it down to the core truths. Because, as we talk about a lot here on The Vocal Technologist, especially on our Tech Tuesdays, you need to know where the pivot points are right now, not 6 months from now.
Exactly. So you can look at a new trend and understand its ultimate implication for your work.
Okay, let's dig in. We should start with a blockbuster acquisition that I think confirms exactly where the major industry investment is flowing.
Straight into AI tooling.
And developer infrastructure. We saw a huge shakeup in the JavaScript world.
That's the big news. Bun, the high-performance JavaScript runtime, bundler, and package manager that everyone's been talking about, well, it's been acquired by Anthropic.
Anthropic, a major AI player grabbing a core piece of the JavaScript ecosystem. I mean, that feels like a huge vote of confidence for the Bun project, right? It gives them stability, resources.
It does.
But if I'm building just a standard web app, should I be concerned?
That's the critical question, isn't it? And while it provides that long-term stability and deep resources, the strategic implication is crystal clear.
Which is?
Those resources are going to be laser-focused on building the best possible JavaScript tooling for AI-driven software. Think about projects they already have, like Claude Code.
Ah, okay. So, stability for Bun, but with a potentially narrower, much sharper focus driven by AI integration.
Precisely. Now, the good news for the wider community is that Bun is confirmed to remain open source, MIT licensed, and publicly developed by the same team.
Okay.
And they're keeping their focus on Node.js compatibility and, of course, that blistering performance. But Anthropic gets that deep integration right into the tool chain, right where the AI meets the human engineer.
That deep integration is so powerful. And speaking of practical AI, we saw a fascinating story about how it's transforming internal diagnostics. At scale, Databricks is using an AI-assisted platform to debug its thousands of databases.
And the efficiency gains are they're astonishing. They achieved a staggering 90% reduction in debugging time.
90%.
This AI platform can unify metrics. It automatically retrieves logs, correlates signals across these vast systems, all using natural language.
So instead of an engineer clicking through 8 different dashboards, they can just ask the AI, why did transaction X fail an hour ago?
Exactly. That's the dream of the co-pilot, right? Talking to the system instead of navigating a map.
Yeah.
But if we want these agents to be effective, the material made it really clear you can't just point it at a massive code repo and, wish it luck.
Right, you need to guide it.
Absolutely. The research into agent documentation shows that successful onboarding files, things like a CLAI.md or an agents.md, they don't treat the agent as a generalist, they treat it as a specialist.
Okay.
You have to give it specific commands, concrete code examples, and explicit boundaries. You literally tell it, never touch files in the legacy directory, or if you need a database query, always use this specific helper function.
So the agent needs a clear, specialized job description, not just the whole company handbook.
Exactly. And, that leads to a really crucial reality check. While AI is great for complex diagnostics, we have to resist this pressure to integrate LLMs into features where traditional code just works better.
The counterpoint. We don't need AI for everything.
No. If you have a straightforward, deterministic problem like, say, basic email validation, or checking a simple field format, using an LLM is just overkill. It introduces unnecessary costs, latency, reliability issues.
Right. Don't pay for the magic of an LLM when a regex will do the job.
Faster, cheaper, and more reliably. You reserve AI for genuinely complex problems, things involving unstructured data, ambiguity, or, natural language understanding.
So reserving complex tools for complex problems, that actually leads us perfectly into our next section, which explores this idea of unreasonable effectiveness.
Architectural secrets.
Yeah, these secrets that show how the most foundational tools can sometimes yield the biggest performance wins.
And we saw a really powerful argument for SQLite.
Right. Most of us think of it as like a lightweight embedded tool, great for prototyping or mobile maybe, but it's got that single writer limitation.
It's the definition of a local database.
Yeah.
And conventional wisdom says those limitations are drawbacks, but the benchmarks are showing they actually contribute massively to scalability in certain workloads.
What kind of numbers are we talking about?
We are talking over 100,000 TPS. That's transactions per second.
Wow.
Even with concurrent reads happening over 1 billion rows.
That's an incredible number. But how does a single writer tool even achieve that kind of throughput?
It all comes from removing one fundamental constraint, the network. SQLite gets rid of network latency entirely, and that single writer constraint lets it optimize internally for super efficient batching and sequential writing.
Okay, so it shines in specific scenarios.
Exactly, in what we call power law distributed workloads, which is really common,
Right.
The whole 80-20 rule where 80% of your read requests hit only 20% of your data. For those skewed access patterns, removing the network lets it just blow past network databases like Postgres.
It's amazing that just removing one element, the network, gives it such a competitive edge. Network latency truly is the silent killer.
It really is.
And that theme of foundational efficiency, it connects directly to another story. The huge performance jump from the Tanstack router team.
Oh, this was great.
They were just chasing correctness, and then they accidentally got this massive performance gain.
Accidental is the key word. But the gain was monumental, a 20,000x performance improvement in route matching.
20,000 times faster. That's not an incremental fix, that's a fundamental transformation. What was the core change?
It was a classic computer science win. They just switched their underlying algorithmic complexity. They moved from an ON flat list iteration where performance scales based on the total number of routes to an OM segment try data structure.
Okay, so just for clarity, OM means that the performance now only depends on the length of the URL path, not the total number of routes in the whole app. That's the critical distinction, isn't it?
That's it, exactly. If you have 500 routes in your system, ON gets slow. But if your path only has, say, 3 segments, OM is lightning fast, no matter if there are 497 other routes.
Okay.
And then they layered on even more optimizations with bit masking and reusing typed arrays. It just proves that deep algorithmic optimization can still yield these exponential returns that you can't get by just throwing more hardware at a problem.
That commitment to foundational efficiency is being reflected in large infrastructure moves, too. Like at Reddit, they're undergoing a major internal shift to chase that same performance.
Oh yeah, Reddit is systematically getting rid of its Python monoliths. This is a massive modernization effort.
They're migrating core services entirely away from Python.
For core transactional services, yes. Comments and accounts have already been fully migrated to domain-specific Go microservices.
And the driver is just pure performance and reliability.
At their scale, it has to be. Go remains the reliable battle axe for these colossal systems.
Shed the baggage of the monolith, get closer to the metal, embrace concurrency. It's the constant trend at that level.
It is.
Yes.
Okay, so let's quickly run through some critical updates and alerts that you really need to be aware of in the ecosystem right now.
All right, let's start with language quality of life. What should Go developers be looking out for?
For Go developers, there's a new proposal for errors.AsType. You can think of this as the improved version of the existing errors. AS, it's generic, it's type safe, and it's faster.
So, recommended for all new code.
Recommended for all new code moving forward. It's just cleaner and more robust.
And for Python developers using Django.
Django 6.0 has some fantastic features coming. The highlights for me were native content security policy support, which is a huge security win baked right in template partials, and modernizing their email handling to use Python's modern email API.
Okay, good stuff. On the front end, the debate about toolchain complexity just never dies. Is vanilla CSS finally viable for serious projects?
Absolutely. The complexity of so many modern CSS toolchains is becoming unnecessary. Companies like 37 Signals are actively building complex UIs using vanilla CSS without a single build tool.
No preprocessor, no utility library.
Nothing outside of the browser itself. They're relying entirely on modern features like custom properties, nesting, and the really powerful low selector.
That's a huge reduction in cognitive load and build time.
It is when you can remove build dependencies just to style a page. you've unlocked a whole new level of simplicity.
Okay, let's pause here because these next 2 points are fire alarm level critical. We have 2 urgent security alerts.
You must pay attention to these. First, there's a serious new technique called SVG clickjacking.
Okay.
So traditional clickjacking involves putting a malicious iframe over a legitimate one to trick a user. SVG clickjacking flips that model. It allows for complex, interactive attacks that can effectively steal data or trick a user into performing unauthorized actions in a way we thought was impossible in the browser.
So what's the action item?
You need to review your front-end security policies around SVG uploads and rendering immediately.
Got it. And the second one affects anyone using React server components.
Yes, there is a critical remote code execution RCE vulnerability. That's CVE 2025-55182.
RCE. The worst kind.
It means an attacker could potentially take over your server. This affects React server components in Next.js versions 14.3.0, Canary.77 and higher, as well as all of the 15.x and 15.x versions. Immediate patching is mandatory. This is not one you can delay.
Okay, immediate patch, check.
Yeah.
Now let's pivot to the human side of the industry because the material had a really frank and kind of depressing discussion about the junior hiring paradox.
Yeah, the hiring crisis for juniors.
Lots of new graduates, but new engineers are really struggling to find roles.
It's a systemic crisis, and it feels like a real bottleneck.
Yep.
The root causes are deeply intertwined. First, as we saw with Databricks, AI is demonstrably automating a lot of the low-level repetitive tasks that were historically the entry point for juniors.
Right.
And second, senior engineers are not prioritizing mentorship. They see it as a burden that detracts from their own feature output, not as an essential investment in the team.
So if the entry-level tasks are gone and mentorship isn't happening, the ladder for new talent essentially disappears. So what's the actionable advice for someone trying to break in right now?
The emphasis has to shift dramatically away from purely technical chops. New engineers must focus heavily on developing networks, learning to communicate effectively, and demonstrating high interpersonal skills.
The human connection.
You need that human connection and communication ability to secure a role when the only tasks left are collaborative and complex.
That makes the human element paramount.
But the material also raised a really frustrating question for companies. Why do good, capable engineers write bad code at big, well-resourced companies? It's not a lack of skill.
No, it's entirely systemic. It's driven by career incentives. The issue is a profound lack of long-term ownership.
How so?
Big companies frequently rotate engineers onto code bases they're totally unfamiliar with, often before they can become true experts. At the same time, the hiring market incentivizes job hopping every 2 years for a big compensation boost.
So they're optimizing for personal career mobility, not for system stewardship. Precisely. That combination means there's no incentive and often no time to develop true long-term expertise in any one system. And that leads directly to suboptimal code, rushed fixes, and massive technical debt left behind for the next person.
But the flip side of that story is the compounding value of long-term stewardship.
We saw a fantastic counterexample in the material. A senior staff engineer who deliberately focused on long-term stewardship of internal developer tools and infrastructure, actively ignoring the product team spotlight.
Sticking with one area.
And by remaining with that system long-term, that engineer gained these profound compounding returns through deep pattern matching and expertise. It enabled them to execute these highly impactful foundational projects that others couldn't even see needed doing, much less tackle them.
So quiet expertise can yield better returns than chasing the hottest new product team.
Especially if you measure impact over years, not months. It's the strategic choice for long-term health for both the engineer and the code base.
So let's synthesize all of this for you, the person architecting or writing code today. We've seen the industry being forced to optimize for maximum efficiency across the board.
And that efficiency is reshaping the entire landscape. It demands highly specialized AI tools like what Anthropic will build with Bun. It requires us to rediscover these counterintuitive architectural wins.
Yeah, proving that sometimes the simplest tool like SQL removing the network barrier wins.
And that fundamental algorithmic shifts, like that move to the trie structure, can yield thousands of times the speed.
And maybe most critically, the growing complexity of the career ladder demands that soft skills and the ability to demonstrate long-term ownership are now non-negotiable. Efficiency is being demanded from the assembly line all the way to the core machinery.
And that leads us to our final and I think critical observation from the materials. The soaring price of high-bandwidth RAM. It's being driven almost entirely by the insatiable exponential demand from massive AI data centers.
This shortage is impacting everyone. We saw the incredible detail that the scarcity was so severe that Samsung Semiconductor reportedly rejected a massive supply order from Samsung Electronics for their own Galaxy phones.
They had to renegotiate at higher rates. The global economic cost of computing is hitting consumer devices.
Oh.
And this raises a profound question for you, the developer who lives and breathes efficiency. As specialized hardware becomes scarce and exponentially expensive, how soon will our architectural decisions, from choosing a database like SQLite over a networked one to optimizing a router algorithm, be driven not just by local performance benchmarks, but by the global economic cost and availability of computing resources?
Will the most efficient code eventually become the only viable, sustainable, and economically responsible code? Something to think about the next time you write that first line of an architectural review. Thanks for joining us to unpack these crucial currents shaping the industry.
We'll catch you next time.
Spoken Tech for your ears.